What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down how quarterbacks can increase their arm strength. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things, but also, fellas, if you are a quarterback and would like to train with us this offseason, we are going to be traveling out to 5 more states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. Next up on our camp tour, we'll be coming out to Austin, Texas. That camp is completely sold out, but then we'll be heading out to Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles, California. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're local to one of those 4 states remaining where we have open spots. Again, very first link in that description below. Let's get started with this video. So how this video is going to go down is we're going to be breaking down some incorrect quarterback throwing mechanic form, some of the common mistakes that we will see out of quarterbacks that limit their arm strength, and then we're going to be comparing it obviously to some professional examples where these quarterbacks have the top tier mechanics, and that's why they throw the ball so freaking hard and so far. So this first example is a quarterback throwing like kind of a bang 8 post, a throw that you have to throw on time, a throw that needs some velocity to it. But when he plants off of his back leg, I want you to pay attention to where his back foot is and how his back shin and knee are both caved inward. So throwing velocity, throwing power, throwing distance all comes from a quarterback's ability to be able to generate something called torque. Torque comes from the rotation of your hips, but not just the rotation of your hips, because I think every single quarterback knows that you want to drive off your legs and you want to rotate with your hips. But it's more so about the timing of your hip rotation in your throwing motion. So when you guys go to throw, it is very, very important that you are on sequence with your throwing motion. And by on sequence, I mean the throwing sequence. So your throwing sequence is broken up into 4 specific parts. Number 1 is going to be your base. You have to be in a position where your weight is loaded onto your back leg so you can take that weight that you have loaded and transfer that weight to the front leg, which is what causes that hip rotation to go through, right? But if your back foot is too wide, which in this case, this quarterback's back foot is too wide, and your shin is caved in, your knee is caved in, you do not have any weight loaded to your back leg. When your knee is caved and when your shin is caved, all of your weight is loaded onto the front side of your body. So you've essentially already transferred the weight from your back leg to your front leg. So when you go to throw, you're pretty much back leg power, your back leg rotation, this hip drive is non-existent. You are throwing this thing all arm, and when you throw this thing all arm, you might get away with it for a little while. That is not sustainable. That is not going to be sustainable arm strength, and you are eventually going to get to a point where other quarterbacks who are using their legs, using their hips, generating torque will be able to out-throw you if you're just throwing all arm. So what this quarterback should have done in this example, because that knee is caved in and that weight is loaded forward, I would have coached him to think, sit down a little more. Try to get your heel into the turf. Keep that shin straight. Sit your butt down. Don't think of it like you were just bending your knees. Because now, again, torque comes from that hip rotation, but the hip rotation has to happen before the shoulders go through. They call that hip and shoulder dissociation, right? So what you want to do is you want to have your hips going through as your shoulders stay back. You take your shoulders back with the ball, you rotate back with the ball, and then those hips rip through before bringing the shoulders and bringing the ball through. But when all that weight is loaded to your front side, it is impossible for you to rotate your shoulders back, getting to that dissociation position. All of his weight is shooting through, so he physically can't close the front side. He can get to a nice backstroke, he gets to this nice L, but his shoulder is coming through before the hips come through. In this position where the elbow leads the hip, that is solely due to his base being too wide. So, and again, that knee caving in. So, let's play this thing full speed one more time, and then we'll compare it to Aaron Rodgers when he throws. And obviously, it's unfair to compare a high school kid who's still new to the game. And when you think about it in terms of how many years he could potentially have left, he's still new to the game compared to Aaron Rodgers, who's 40 years old, been playing the quarterback position his whole life, right? But again, mechanically, you should strive to be like these guys in certain areas. You should never try to replicate their throw to a T, but in certain mechanical areas, which is what we're trying to discuss today, that's where you should be trying to get to. So, you see when Aaron Rodgers goes to throw. Look at his back foot. You see how his back heel is down. You see how his shin is straight. You see how he's sitting down at his butt. His back foot is underneath his frame. This is a position that will allow you to rotate effectively with your hips and have the right timing of the hip rotation. So you see when Aaron Rodgers goes to throw, his weight is back. He's got that ball located very similar to the last quarterback. But again, when those hips go through, what should those shoulders be doing? Those shoulders should be back. His weight should be loaded back as that front stride gets down. Because now the front stride's down, and because he got to that mechanically efficient position to transfer his weight, when he transfers his weight, that back hip can come through before the football does. And that is where we generate torque. It comes from that hip and shoulder dissociation, but also the timing of that hip rotation in his motion. Because again, fellas, when you have all that weight onto your front side, like here, like your front foot is heavy, your back foot, you're on your tippy toes, your shin is caved, you physically cannot rotate your shoulder back. Look at the Nike logo when he goes. You see how it rotates back. His shoulder is closing. That makes sure that his hips are able to rotate through before the upper half does. And he's not thinking about this. Not all this is running through his head. He's repped it out a million times. And I'm confident every single quarterback listening to this can get to this point. But it starts with the back leg. If your back shin is in a good spot, you're sitting your butt down, your whole heel is in the grass, your weight is loaded enough to get to this spot. When your weight is forward, you cannot load the shoulders. Your shoulders are ripping open the same time the front foot gets down. That's not what we want. We want to be able to stride, have the shoulders stay back, then let the hips bring me all the way through. So let's play this throwing motion again one more time in this slow motion clip right here. This is very, very smooth, and this is what quarterbacks should be striving for mechanically. You don't have to throw like Rodgers exactly. You don't need to try to mimic his arm slot, try to mimic his little pop step that he does with the front foot. But mechanically, what he does with his back leg and his throwing sequence is where you want to try to be. So now, this is a clip here from some random high school quarterback that I found. And this is one of the stupidest drills, in my opinion, that you see a lot of quarterback coaches misusing. If you do this correctly, it can be a good drill. But so many quarterback coaches misuse this drill, and this is a prime example of just that. And I don't blame the kid. I blame the quarterback coach coaching this guy. So when he goes to make this throw, you see how when he steps with his front side, his shoulders come open at the exact same time. Like we said, what was that word? It starts with the letter T that causes quarterbacks to have power. It's called torque, right? So torque comes from your ability to separate the upper half and the lower half. When you go back with the ball, your front shoulder needs to close, you need to stay back, and then the hips rotate through, bringing the upper half through. But when you guys take a step with your front foot, you want to make sure that it's a step first, but your weight stays loaded back so your shoulders can go back, and then we transfer. It's not like, you don't want to think of it like you're pushing to stride. You want to think of it like you're striding, then pushing off the back leg. So in this specific example, this quarterback coach doesn't know that. He's just, okay, you're going to straddle the bag to make sure that you pivot with your back foot and to make sure that you step short with your front foot, but he's not paying any attention to the quarterback's upper half. When you guys take a step with your front foot and your weight's coming through at the exact same time, there is no torque there. You are just pushing the ball. There is no separation. Elbows ahead of the hips. The back leg trails behind because his base is too wide because of this stupid drill that he has him working. And so many quarterbacks do these kinds of drills that develop bad habits. There needs to be a separation in your motion for power and for velocity on the throw, right? Like you should be here. You should take a stride with your front foot, and your back foot should be almost completely straight with weight loaded on it so your shoulders can be back and those hips can rotate before the shoulders. I cannot stress that enough. It's not just about hip rotation, because a lot of people know that they should rotate with their hips, like this quarterback coach, right? Like he's having them do this drill, and he knows that this drill is for hip rotation. You're not going to be able to drag your foot, swing your foot. You have to pivot when you're doing this drill so your hips rotate. But it's not just about the hips rotating. It's about the timing of the hip rotation. When do your hips rotate? During your throwing sequence. That's what you want to try to think about as a quarterback. So let's look at this example here from Aaron Rodgers when he goes to throw. So this is a deep pass too. This is not like a 10-yard pass. So normally this is where quarterbacks' mechanics go out the window. But watch his throwing sequence. Because remember, power comes from torque. Power comes from separating the upper half and the hips. So your upper half has to stay back while your hips have to shoot you through. That's how we generate that T word, torque. So when Rodgers goes to throw, I want you to pay attention to his base. Again, back foot's under his frame, weight is loaded onto the back leg. That is textbook. Now, when he takes a step with his front foot, I want you to see, where is his weight? His weight is loaded onto his back leg, and his shoulders are staying back. He's not pushing off of this foot or pivoting off of this foot to create the stride, because when all that weight goes forward, you cannot rotate your shoulder. And when your shoulders can't rotate separate from your hips, or your upper half can't stay back, you are going to lose power. You do not want all of this weight that you have loaded pre-throw to transfer forward all at once. You want to think of it like you're here. You stay loaded on the back leg, you step down, then we transfer. You step first as the shoulders stay back, then we transfer with my hips. That's where torque comes from. That's where power comes from. It's not how an old school quarterback coach teaches it. It's not about pushing off your back foot for a stride. It's not about pivoting off your back foot for a stride. It's about separating the upper and the lower. You stride, your shoulders stay back. You transfer after you stride. You stride, then drive, not drive to stride. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. This is a great example of the proper throwing mechanics you need to be able to throw that ball farther and harder. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, we are going to be traveling out to 5 more states across the country for 2-day-long QB wide receiver camps. Again, Austin, Texas is sold out, but we will be coming out to 4 more locations that you guys can all attend. So very first link in that description below. I'll see you guys next time.